darkness. When darkness seems to hide its face, I rest on His unchanging grace. In every heart and soul began, my anchor holds within the veil. Oh, my anchor holds within the veil. Oh, in Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's arm. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When He shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone. Oh, boldly stand before the throne. Oh, in Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. One more time, Christ alone. Oh, Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's arm. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all.
We're going to listen to a testimony now, but I'm going to tell the teenagers to stay in, and I'm going to send all the little ones out because I know how you guys love to have fun outside there, all right? So all the little ones can go, the teenagers will stay behind. Thank you very much, and I'm going to invite Connie up. For those that don't know Connie and Greg, stand up for a minute, man. Come on, so everybody sees how good looking you are. This is Greg and Connie. Greg and Connie are missionaries with our church. They serve in the Middle East, and of course they haven't been able to get there because of COVID, but they haven't been sitting around doing nothing. And so Connie's been quite involved in helping us in our church set up an ESL classes, which she'll tell you more about. And Greg does online church for the Middle East, one-to-one discipleship. So that's good to know. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all you do. Connie, you come up and share.
Yep, it will get here. Well, it's good morning, everyone. It's just so lovely to be here inside a packed church and a vibrant one. This is like a second home to Greg and I. We've been here, 1995 when we first set foot in this church, and it has grown so much. God has opened so many doors of opportunities whilst we're waiting for what's next for Greg and I. And we've been involved, I've been involved for teaching English as a second language or for speakers of other language. And the vision of this church is to reach out to those speakers of other languages. So, can you please put your hands up if English is your first language? Put your hands up. English is your first language. That's amazing. Do you know that that's a gift? Thank you. Can you please put your hands up if English is not your first language? Thank you. Thank you so much. This church has started a ministry which is teaching English for speakers of other languages. And we started that the fourth term of last year. And we have students from Asian background. Our Bible study, I've got Indonesian. Rina, can you please stand up? I've got from China, there's Suzanne, and I've got Jinsuk in my Bible study. Yes, and this is the backbone of our ESL classes. Thank you, you can sit down. And Suben is one of our students. Suben, can you please stand up? She's from Korea. And she started attending our church. Now I'm about to cry, she's like my baby. And I'm not doing this out of my own strength. Julie, who's a very capable and wonderful teacher. Julie, can you please stand up? Thank you. Julie's actually teaching our advanced classes, and we're a good team. These people have come from a new country, and being in a new country calls for certain challenges, not only learning the language, but adjusting to the culture, food, people, and more so the Aussie slang. It's difficult to understand. At the moment, it's difficult to go outside our country, but do you know that there are thousands of people that's inside our country that cannot speak English, and they're wrestling and coping and struggling and being challenged to live in our country. And I even have some friends from Richmond Baptist Church who are here to support our guest speaker. Richmond Baptist Church has grown from having 15 ESL students to 300 students. Without further ado, I just want to introduce our speaker. Our guest is a friend of mine. She's lovely. The joy of the Lord is in her. I'd like you to hear her story. I don't know why I'm crying. I have a love for Middle Eastern people. And when I saw the joy of the Lord in Narga's life, it brings me so much hope that those people who live in the dark will still see the light. And I just pray that you pray with me as we introduce Nargis and her family. Because it's not easy to change your allegiance from dark to light. There's a lot of attack. So please pray for Nargis as she speaks. Would you please come?
Good morning, church. Good morning. It's an honor to be here, and I know I'm going to talk about God. It's not about me. Yes, the story is my story and my family's story, but it's all about God, and I want to give all glory to Him. My name is Nargis. I'm from Iran, the country in Middle East, not Iraq, not Afghanistan, Iran, because I know maybe some people just don't know about the countries. Doesn't matter. We knew about Australia, Australian people, and it was so nice that how God changed my life and just sent us to Australia. I was born in a Muslim family, like other Iranian, and I grew up as a Muslim. But I was a devout Muslim. When I was 12, I decided to be Muslim, and I remember that when I was 14 years old, I asked my dad to pray as a Muslim because he didn't pray. And I told him, if you don't pray, I don't accept your money. You should pray as a Muslim. And he didn't know how to pray, and I taught him. And also, I asked my mom to have hijab because after revolution that happened 40 years ago, hijab, cover yourself, be mandatory in Iran, obligation. And when you are outside, you have to just cover fully yourself. But inside the house, it was just people's choice. But as a Muslim woman, you have to cover yourself. So it was me who asked my mom to do that. Just I wanted to say how much I loved Islam and how much I loved to be a Muslim girl. I grew up in very nice family, and I was the eldest. Then I went to university. I've got my bachelor in nursing. Then I met my handsome husband, and we married. I had a list to choose a man as a husband, and definitely the first option must be a devout Muslim. And I remember it was my first question I asked him. Because Islam is not an original religion for Iranian. So for that reason, maybe you see lots of Iranian who they are not real Muslim. Islam came from Arab country, but we are Persian. And we have been Muslim by force many, many years ago, maybe 900 years ago. So I asked my husband that, do you believe really Islam and do you love Islam? And he said, yes, I do. And then I went for other question. So anyway, we married, and after a few years, I remember that one day my husband came to me and said, Nargis, I don't believe Islam anymore. And it frightened me. I said, how? How you can say that? I said, I don't think Muhammad was a prophet or was a holy man. I love to only believe God, only him and me. I don't need any religion or any person between us. I fought for that for many years to change his mind because I loved him so much. If I didn't love him, definitely I divorced. But because I loved him so much, I wanted to be with him. And after 4 years, just I gave up. I said, okay, you can have just your belief, only believe God, but please don't tell anyone about it. So I had my belief, and I was praying for him that God forgive him. We had a plan to immigrate to Canada. It was around 10 years ago, and we were in processing to go to Canada. We choose the city. I've learned French, and yeah, we have done everything and was get ready to go to Canada. But I involved assembly, a group, who the leader believed God is love. God is not the God that showed in Islam. It was Islamic group, but they believe that God loved us more than show in Islam. And I really love that, and I connected that group. And after a while, just police realized about it. They started to arrest people, leaders, and so on. So we had to leave country immediately. And we couldn't wait to receive our Canadian visa. So we jumped on the plane and flew to Indonesia, found a smuggler over there, and we came to Australia by boat. And it is exactly our boat. We passed the ocean with that small boat. It was September 2012. We went to Christmas Island. We've been there for 2 months. Then we have been sent to Adelaide Detention Center. We've been there for 45 days, and then they sent us to Brisbane. They sent us to north of Brisbane. And even our caseworker said, I don't know why they sent you here, because there is no Iranian community, no other Middle East community over here. We've been at Everton Park. I don't know if you know where is that. And I remember the third day we went to the library. I couldn't speak English at all. Still I can't, but I try. My husband could, and a little bit. So we went to library and asked them if they know any English classes over there. And I remember that nice lady said, oh, sorry, because just all native speaker lives here, and we don't have any English class, but I can find out for you. And later she gave us the list of the English classes, and one of them was Stafford Baptist Church. So we started to go over there, and the first thing amazed us, the welcoming and their kindness. I was Muslim with that outfit, as you see, but they didn't care. Just they loved us so much. We went there every Monday, not for English, first for the love that we receive over there. And the second reason definitely was English. And also we connected to Nexus Care, the community service that is placed at Nexus Church at Everton Park. They were so kind, unbelievable kind. And we received some food parcel from them. And because in that time we couldn't get a job, we didn't have permission to get any job or do a study. And I'm sure Connie knows that Middle East people love to work. They can't sit at home and only receive money. So we decided to go and work volunteer over there. Actually, it was my husband's decision, so he decided to go. For sure, I wasn't that brave to go over there. And I told him, definitely they don't accept you, they don't know you. And how they can trust you? I said, I go and ask. And he went, and later he called me and said, Nargis, can you believe I'm driving the car now? They trusted me. They gave me a car to go and just grab something for the county service. So they were so lovely. Always they sent me card by Yazdan and sent me hi. Yazdan said, why you don't come over and work there? I said, no, I can't speak English. I said, come and just practice your English. So later I started to go over there. I remember one day I asked Nicola, a lady who was over there, I said, Nicola, how you trust us? Maybe we were criminal people who escaped from their country. You don't know about me and Yazdan, but how you trust us, how you love us. And also we are Muslim. She said, Nargis, I trust you because Jesus trusts you, and I love you because Jesus loves you. And it was like a shock for me. And always they helped us, always. And I remember the lady from another church helped me and one of my friends who needed lots of furniture and so on, and they gave it to her as a free. And I said, thank you so much for helping us. And said, be thankful to Jesus. I said, no, you did it. I said, no, Jesus did it. I said, no, you did it. I couldn't understand. Always when I said thank you, they said Jesus did for you. And I couldn't understand that. And I was thinking, this is their decision. Why they said Jesus did for you? And one day, Jehovah couple witnesses came and knocked the door. And they said, do you want to read the Bible? My husband said, yes, because we didn't have friends and we missed to have guests at our place. So we said, yes, we would love to have a Bible study at our place. My husband said, just please know that my wife is Muslim. She doesn't have any plan to change her religion. And I only believe God. I don't want to have any religion. So we don't think to change our religion, but we want to have you at our place because we didn't have opportunity to read Bible in our country, and we believe Bible is a holy book, and we want to read it. The second, it helps improving our English. So we had a Bible study at our place every fortnight. Every fortnight Thursday, they came to our place for a meal, for a lunch. And then we started to read the Bible, and sometimes between, I went to upstairs, pray as a Muslim, again came back, continue. And it was like reading a storybook for me. After 3 months, it happened. When we read Matthew chapter 5, verse 28, and the verse talk about that always I, when I want to say that, man has to be careful how they look at the woman, you know. And when it is like everlasting in their heart, something like that. So it amazed me and surprised me. I said, wow, it's amazing. And Michael said, what's amazed you? I said, why God in Quran always ask women to have hijab, don't dance, don't use perfume, don't do makeup. But here in Bible, ask man first. What's the difference between this book and the other book? Because I believe both books are from one God. And later we read verse 38 that said, if someone slaps on your cheek, just turn the other. And I was a person who, if someone slaps on me, I punch him back, for sure. And for many years, I read that verse in lots of books, or I've heard it through the Western movie, and always I said, such a stupid things Jesus said to his follower. How you can do that? But that day, when I read it, God revealed it to me, and I was thinking, yes, it's a secret of life, forgiveness. After they gone, I couldn't stop thinking about these two verses. Later on evening, I told Yazdan, what do you think about that two verses? I said, yeah, they were nice verses. I said, no, not only nice. There was something different. Said, I don't know, maybe that verses were for Christian people, it was in that time, and later on God decided to change it, because in Islam about forgiveness said, it's your right to do revenge, as I said in Old Testament, you know. But forgiveness is better. But in Bible we know we should do that. It's a not choice. You have to do it. So it's a big difference. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And as a Muslim, I felt guilty in my heart that now I have doubt about Quran and what Quran said. So for a few days, I didn't know what should I do. And later, I remember about my cousin's wife, who was Muslim like me, but they immigrated to Malaysia 6 years before we came to Australia. So I tried to contact her. I sent her a message on Facebook, and later on she sent me an email. I asked her, have you seen anything difference between Quran and Bible? Because in Iran, normally people don't have the opportunity to read the Bible. But I was thinking, because she's living in Malaysia, maybe she had a chance. And it was a person who always, I love to see her as a devout woman Muslim. She sent me back the message and said, oh, hallelujah, you asked me this question. Definitely, yes. Nargis Muhammad is not prophet. I said, what? Jesus is God. I said, no. And I remember I was reading that. Yazdan was sitting next to me, and just I answered every line. I was, no, yes, wow. And then I said, Yazdan, see what she said. She became Christian, and he knew about her and also her husband, who was my cousin. I said, you know how much they were devout Muslim? How it's possible? And at the end of the email, she said, if you want to know more, we can just connect via Skype and talk about it. So later, we connected, and it really surprised me. I said, no. I know Christianity is a right religion, but still I believe Muhammad was prophet. And my friends who are Christian, they believe too. I said, no, if they are real Christian, they don't believe. I said, I will go and ask them. Next day, I ran to Nexus Care. I found the first person, Tanya. I said, Tanya, I have a question. I said, yeah, ask. I said, do you believe Muhammad was prophet? And she said, why you asked this question? I said, please, just give me the answer. And I said, I'm so sorry, no. I said, why you didn't tell me earlier? I said, why I should tell you? You are Muslim. So I came back home, again, contact my cousin's wife. We had a chat. So it went for a few months. She sent me lots of resources to check and start to read the Bible. And I had thousands and thousands question comes up. Wow, what about this? What about that? And I couldn't just forget about it and be still Muslim. I wanted to know, but there was something in my heart. As a Muslim, how I can believe whatever I believed, it was wrong. So later I asked her, I said, how you became Christian? And she said, Nargis, I made a deal with God. I became Christian, I started to read the Bible, but I told God, if you can't show me, then again I return back as a Muslim. And in that time I was praying, it was Ramadan, I was fasting as a Muslim, but after 2 months I've got Holy Spirit baptized. And then I was truly sure that Jesus was Son of God. I said, okay, I made that decision. And it was 4th February 2014, midnight, while Yazdan had my hand. I repeated the prayer after she said, and I became Christian. And Yazdan said, oh, Nargis, I'm so happy. I'm so glad. Now you are free of Islam, all of that ridiculous rules, but don't ask me to be Christian. I said, no, I won't. It's your choice. But please come with me to church because I want to start to go to church. For a year that we involved Nexus Care, we didn't go to church. As a Muslim, I didn't want to go to church. But then I decided to go to church and I asked her, please don't tell anyone about it. So next day we went to church and then we started Alpha course as some of our friends invited us. They didn't know about my belief, but just they said, Nargis, go and just have a nice food over there. You will meet new people. I said, okay. So also Yazdan and I went to Alpha course. And yeah, 1 month later something happened. And just if we have a time, I'm really happy if Yazdan can come and talk about his testimony because it's an amazing testimony, maybe for 5 minutes. So later on, and then because in my country I was a biology teacher and I really loved to back to school. So I applied to get a job and I got a job as a science technician at high school, but it was in lab, not in the class. Later on, I could attend a TESOL course with my dear Connie, and we finished TESOL course together and then kept going to be part of ITA team and also some English classes. And last year, Connie and I, again, we passed TAE course to be qualified to teach English at TAFE or some colleges. And it's me who couldn't speak English 8 years ago when we came to Australia. Now I'm his daughter and also can teach English. May I ask my husband to come?
Hi everybody, my name is Yazdan. Thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for having us here. And thank you very much. And same to you. I want to share my testimony. Maybe it can be encouraging for you and your family and you can share it with someone else. Since we attended to the church, as Nargis said, 2 months after that, I was in the church, just sitting, watching, and I concentrate on everything and see everything as an English class, nothing else. But one day I was in the church, and during the worship, so everybody stand to worship, and I was standing like other people. But during the worship, I close my eyes and I pray for lots of things, but through myself. All of a sudden, I felt someone came and hugged me. In my imagination, it was someone with like white clothes, long beard, and long hair. And he hugged me and he put my head in his shoulder, and I felt the finger in the back was hot. His fingerprint was hot. I felt it. And I don't know how long does it take, but when I closed my eyes, worship was finished. And everybody is standing, sit down, only me. And it was a very peaceful moment, and I was free from everything. I'm still looking for that moment. Nothing happened after that, but it was amazing. I want to say I'm such a person that he came and found me. I didn't find him. He came. He followed me. And praise the Lord, he made me free. After church, I don't know why, I went to the pastor and I asked him to pray for me. And he told me, I pray for what? I said, pray for everything. So they pray, and after that, everybody became excited. But after that, we realized the administration team in the church and all of the pastors prayed for us for 1 year. And one of them, 1 year ago, had a dream. Nargis and I, we will be Christian one day in this church. And it's happened. And praise the Lord that we find a way. And after that, Nargis and I decided to share this love and share everything we have between other people. And we decided to, maybe we don't have time to travel to Middle East and share a love with other people, but we can send the money different area, find the trustworthy people, give them money, and they can distribute this money to the different place, different people, different community, and support them from different way. And the other things is about Middle East, just about Iran, I want to share. In Iran, some people have access to the Bible, but the Bible is not real, because they add one chapter to the Bible and it's mentioned Muhammad is coming after Jesus Christ. And so it is important, if we want to guide them and support them, find a trustworthy resource and give them right information. Thank you so much for everything. Really appreciate it.
Come, Connie, let's pray for them, eh?
Can I just request as well the ESL group to come up, please? Can you come up? Thank you, Nargis, and thank you, Yasin, for that testimony. I'm sure you're all inspired now, so if you can just invite your neighbors or your friends that need to come up now, please. Need some help in English language, please. Every Wednesday here we meet from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, and classes. Julie, can you please come up, please, as well? And classes will start, this Wednesday, 1:30 to 3. Thank you, here at church.
Come, Greg, come and stand up here, buddy. All right, let's pray. Well, Lord, we thank you for this amazing, amazing testimony this morning. We're just taken aback by your word to us this morning. Thank you for this beautiful family. We pray that you'd continue to be with them and use them in a special, special way. Lord, thank you for those that are learning English and those that are teaching English and those that are involved in this ministry. And Lord, we pray that you'd continue to bless this ministry because that's what you want to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a seat. Well, we're going to sing another song, and then we'll get into the scriptures. We'll send all the teenagers out. They're probably cursing me right now. Made them sit for so long. Thank you, teenagers. All right, Crystal, come and sing. Let's sing a song together, and then we'll get into the scriptures, eh? Thank you, everybody. Let's stand together. Stretch those legs.
So good. That was an awesome testimony. Light of the world, you stepped out into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all love's sake became poor. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. None ever know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. None ever know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. We bless you this morning, Lord God. You may have a seat. Thank you.
All right, let's try to do this, eh? Don't want to keep you too long, but God's word is full of richness and what we need in our lives today. So please turn with me in your Bibles to the book of Acts, chapter 18 together. While we're at it and you're turning there, let me just ask you a quick question. And this is an opportunity for you to turn around to the person next to you. And if you want to discuss it with your wife or your husband, that would be a wonderful thing since you haven't spoken to them for the past week. So here's the question I have for you this morning. Turn around to your partner, ask them, what do you think the greatest challenge is in the church today for the 21st century? What do you think the greatest challenge is of the church today? Come on, turn around. Say to somebody, what do you think the greatest challenge is of the church today? What is the greatest challenge of the church today? All righty. Thank you. We've solved the world's problems. If you haven't been here before, what we're doing is we're going through the book of Acts. And I kind of had a picture of it this morning, yesterday, in the sense that when you take somebody out to pan for gold. So we took our kids to this little area, and they've got all these stones. And so you pay a certain amount, and you look for all these stones. And they've got these little gems you have to look for. And, if you ever want to keep kids busy, this is what you do. You just tell them that there's some little gems in there, and there's not really. And you spend the whole hour searching for these gems. You've even got the parents digging in there, also trying to find them. And they're looking for them. Well, that's how I feel is what happens on a Sunday morning, is that you and I together, we dig through all these things and we come out with the beautiful gems in God's Word, and we take it home and we show everybody. So that's what we want to do this morning as we go through the book of Acts and read it together and study it together and see what we can learn. Last week, Warren shared so beautifully about general revelation and special revelation and how God speaks in the world today. And this week I'll be going Acts. Next week we've got another guest speaker who I've been trying to get here for a while, so that's exciting. And then after that we'll get back into the book of Acts. So I hope you're tagging along with me as we go through this thing. But Paul, you can put that map up. Thank you, Caleb. Paul's been going through the book of Acts, and he's going from city to city. And every city he goes to, he speaks, he gets chucked out of the city. He gets chucked out of the city and gets thrown out and goes to the next city and then says, well, let me try here. And he tries there and whatever. And so we went through the slides and we went through all these cities together, and we learnt that he went from one city to another. And then he went through week before last, we went through this place in Corinth, which I told you was the most horrible place to be in. It was full of immorality. It was just a terrible place to be. And Paul says that he went there with fear and trembling. And we've got this picture of Paul, this great man of God, and yet here he is, fear and trembling in this place. We don't really know all the reasons why, but what we do know is that God comes to him and says to him, Paul, don't worry, fear not. And we worked out, some of you went home and did your homework and came back to me and said to me that fear is mentioned in the Bible how many times? 366 times. Why? Because there's a leap year. You know what I mean? 366 samples of where the God says, I fear you not, one for each day of the week. Because he knows us, we fear a lot. And so he tells Paul, don't fear, I am with you, and there are many others. And we find out that many people give their lives to Christ, and this wonderful church is born in the middle of this cesspool. In the middle of Sin City, the Church of Jesus Christ is born, a holy, pure, beautiful, wonderful place in the middle of darkness. And I always say to you that you always got to see it like this, that when you buy a wedding ring, they put it on a black background and then it shines up. And that's Jesus Christ and the church. It shines through in the middle of a dark place. Imagine salt without, chips without salt. Imagine the community without the church. Imagine the world without Jesus. Tasteless, dark, empty, nothing. You heard those beautiful testimonies this morning of the Church of Jesus Christ. Well, here we are. Paul has been speaking about Jesus, and of course there's opposition. They arrest Paul and they take him, and there's some saving grace because Gallio, who's the Roman person in charge, he says, what did you arrest this guy for? It's got nothing to do with me. Sort your own mess out. And so a wonderful thing takes place, because Gallio sets up a precedent which then goes through the whole of Rome, that when it comes to Christians, they can just share whatever they want. We're not putting them in prison. And so the gospel goes forth into all these areas and all around. It's just wonderful to see. And so here we are at Acts chapter 18, verse 18. I'm going to read it for you. After this, Paul stayed many days longer and then took leave of the brothers and set sail for Syria. And with him Priscilla and Aquila. At Cenchrea he had his hair cut, for he was under a vow. And they came to Ephesus, and he left them there, but he himself went to the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews. When they asked him to stay for a longer period, he declined. But on taking leave of them, he said, I will return to you if God wills. And he set sail for Ephesus. When he had landed at Caesarea, he went up and greeted the church and then went down to Antioch. After spending some time there, he departed and went from one place to the next, to the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. Now a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was an eloquent man, competent in the scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord. And being fervent in spirit, he spoke and taught accurately the things concerning Jesus, though he knew only of the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue, but when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately. And when he wished to cross Achaia, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples to welcome him. When he arrived, he greatly helped those through grace had believed, for he powerfully refuted the Jews in public, showing the scriptures that the Christ was Jesus. Just up to there this morning. Rena, we are praying for Rob. We hope he comes out of ICU. May God's peace and presence be with you and the family. All right. After this, Paul stayed many days longer and took leave of the brothers and went off to Syria. We've got a different scenario here. Paul doesn't leave because he's kicked out, but he leaves out of his own accord. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain to you these verses, and then I'm going to wrap up with some applications, and then you can all go home and blame me for the lunch that's burnt, all right? So he leaves on his own accord. He leaves Corinth because he wants to. Nobody's chasing him out. And we find this because of Gallio's ruling. And he sets sail for Syria. Syria is where Palestine is today. Jerusalem is. He's in Greece, so he's got 1,500 miles to travel by boat, which you would have seen on the map. And so that would have taken a long time. They didn't have speedboats and things like that. And we see that Priscilla and Aquila are traveling with them. Just in case you didn't know, Priscilla is the lady, Aquila is the guy. And then it tells us this little interesting fact. It says in Cenchrea, he had his hair cut. He went to the barber. Jeez. Life is beautiful. All right? So I had to take, my daughter had to take her to school this week, and I stopped at the shop, and there was a thing on the thing that said, cheap haircuts. And I'm like, I'm into cheap haircuts. So I go to the door, and this guy, he says, hello, would you like a haircut? I said, I love a haircut. It's cheap as chips. So he says, come in. And he sits me down and he says to me, you're a very happy man. What is different about you? So I said to him, I don't know what's different about me. So he tells me his name and he tells me that he's from Persia. So I said, from Persia? I said, that's very interesting. So I said to him, well, what do you love doing? He says, I love music. So I said, well, what type of music do you love? He says, I love church music. I said to him, well, I'm a minister of a church. Oh, he was so excited. It was unbelievable. I thought I'd get a discount on the haircut, but I didn't. But what's the chances of me studying about Paul having a haircut and I have a haircut, meeting up with some Persian guy who loves Jesus and he plays the violin and he's going to come and play for us in church? So Paul goes and has a haircut, for goodness sakes, of all the things. Well, it's interesting. Why does he have a haircut? Well, he made a vow. Why did he make a vow? Well, I read all the commentaries and everybody's got a different reason why he made the vow. It was supposedly what they call a Nazirite vow, which has got nothing to do with Nazareth. They're two different things. Nazirite vow, it seems, was something that was made out of consecration to God, whether you were thankful to God or you wanted to commit something to God or you wanted to make some special promise to God. The vow meant doing three things. Number one, not drinking any alcohol or anything from the vine, something like dry July. The other thing was not to cut you weren't allowed to cut your hair, and you weren't allowed to go near to any dead body. And so that's what he did, and then supposedly what happened is that you would, over a period of time, which you would make a promise, you would grow your hair, and then people would see, hey, you got long hair, what's the story, man? Oh, I've made a vow. Why did you make a vow? And then you would tell them. I saw a guy the other day wearing a bangle. It had Jesus on. I said to him, oh, do you get a lot of questions? He says, wherever I go, people ask me about my bangle, and it gives me the opportunity to share with them the story about Jesus. I said, that's a good thing. Maybe this vow did the same thing. This man's growing his hair long. You say, hey, what's with the long hair? You say, well, I can't grow it on top, so I can grow it at the back, Or you could tell him the story about a vow that you've taken to God. And so then the ceremony would be that you go and cut your hair and you would offer that a sacrifice to God to say, God, thank you. Well, why did Paul do this? Well, a lot of commentators, the one that probably I think makes the most sense is that something miraculous happened to Paul, for those that didn't know. There was this man who was incredibly scared, incredibly worried in Corinth, in the midst of the cesspool of sin and sex and violence and everything, and he's scared and he doesn't know what to do. He's just come back from Athens. Not many people gave their lives to the Lord. He's been chased out. He arrives in Corinth, and God meets with him and says, I will be with you, and don't worry, there's many more who are going to come. And I think his vow was a thanksgiving and consecration to the Lord, saying, God, I was so scared. You blessed me. I thank you. I don't just want to forget this, but I want to hold on to this. And for that reason, I want to make a vow. People fast like that today. Why? When you make vows like this, it helps you to remember God's goodness. And I think we don't do enough of this. I remember meeting a family and they had rocks in their house. And they would take these rocks and paint them. And on the rock they would write, thank you, God, for. So whenever they went out, they would remember what God had done for them. You see, because the good thing is that we've got a good forgettery. The bad thing is we have a good forgettery. We seem to remember all the bad stuff. We don't remember all the good things that God has done and brought us through and all of that. So sometimes photos are nice, to see how God has moved us and changed us and our beautiful families and things like that. Anyway, he makes this vow, and verse 19, they came to Ephesus and he left them there, but he himself goes to the synagogue and reasons with the Jews. So he goes back to the synagogue as he usually does, and he reasons, he dialogues with them, he shares with them about Jesus and all of this. It then says he left them there. Well, who did he leave? He left Priscilla and Aquila. And so we have this beautiful story of Priscilla and Aquila, these people who spent time with Paul. He trains them, he disciples them, he encourages them, and then he has the trust and the faith and whatever to leave them there and say, hey guys, I'm going to continue to do what I did with you. 2 Timothy 2 verse 2, which says, entrust these things to reliable people who will pass them on to others, who will then pass them out to others. We call it multiplication. Verse 20, when they asked him to stay for longer, he declined. I think this is very funny. Normally they're kicking Paul out. Now they're telling him to stay. He says, no, I've got to go. He doesn't consent. Verse 21, but on taking leave of him, he said, I will return to you if God wills. Now, this is a common thing with Paul. Paul always said, if God wills. Romans 1 verses 10, if it's God's will. Romans 15 verses 13, if it's God's will. 1 Corinthians 14, 19, I will come to you if God's will. What it does is it tells you this, that Paul, this man who was an entrepreneur, almost like a man on a mission himself, didn't just do things without recognizing God's will in everything. And I think that's a wonderful thing for us, because we've got all our plans. We want to do all these things and whatever. But do we say, Lord, I want to go on holiday if it's your will? It's almost like we come to God, God, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this, and you just make it all happen. If God wills. I was a police chaplain. I was talking to this man. He retired from the police. And I said, what are you going to do? He says, well, I've spent my time working. I'm now going to go and live it up. He says, I bought a caravan. I bought a car. And we're going to travel around Australia. And we're going to live it up. I said, wonderful. 6 months later, he phoned me. He said, Pastor Ray, I'm in hospital. I've got cancer. They've given me 6 months to live. If God wills. Verse 22, when he landed at Caesarea, he went up and greeted the church and went down to Antioch. So he goes there and it greets up. When he says he went up, where did he go? To the city on the hill. What was the city on the hill called? Jerusalem. There we go. Verse 23, after spending some time there, he departed and went from one place to the next through the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. This comes to the end, what we call the second missionary journey. So what did he do? He went back to all the churches that he'd visited before. So he did go and visit them. He started them and he keeps going back to them, just encouraging them in the faith. Verse 24, we have a new man on the scene. Apollos, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria. He came to Ephesus. He was an eloquent man and he was competent in the scriptures. The first tells us that he's a Jew, but his name is Apollos. And so he was instructed in Hebrew. He was born in Alexandria. So if you remember Alexandria, they had the biggest library in the world. And there was a Jewish colony there, and supposedly he was there. For those that don't know, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was written in Greek. But in Alexandria, they translated the whole of the Old Testament into Greek. And that is what we call today the Septuagint, for those who don't know. So there he is in Alexandria, and he's a Jew, and he's telling everybody about the scriptures. It says this, he was eloquent. In no other words, it means this, that he was very good at being able to communicate and do it. When I was at school, we had drama debating classes. We would learn how to debate. I didn't do very well. But I went there a few times and then bowed myself out. But we had these people who were able to just debate, and they were very good at it. He was eloquent. It also tells us this, that he was a man competent in the scriptures. Other translations say that he was mighty in the scriptures, okay? Paul was a man who studied under Gamaliel. He would have learnt the Torah off by heart. 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers, off by heart, people. I can't even remember my wife's name. What's your name again? 5 books of the Bible. I grew up learning scripture off by heart. We don't do it anymore. But it's a good thing, eh? Memorization. This man knew the scriptures off by heart. He studied them, he learned them, he knew them. He'd been instructed in the way of the Lord, it says. Instructed is the word kategeo. You recognize it? Catechism. Catechism means to explain something with repetition. I know you don't like repetition, but repetition is good. It makes it stick in your brain. This is what he did. They did this repetition. They went through these classes over and over again. It says that he was instructed in the way of the Lord. Now, if you were reading your quiet time, you would say, that's nice, and move on. But I hope you're hungry enough to dig for those gems, because only 5 times in the whole Bible does it say that he was instructed in the way of the Lord. In Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts. The first 5 books of the New Testament. Well, what does it mean when it says instructed in the way of the Lord? Well, it was John at his baptism who said, I'm preparing the way of the Lord. In other words, he was instructing them about Jesus, the resurrection, and everything that pertained to that. That's what it was all about. And so he instructs them. Verse 25. It says this, and then he was fervent in spirit. He spoke and taught accurately the things concerning Jesus, though he knew only of the baptism of John. And being fervent in spirit, fervent means to be boiling in spirit. I like that term. You know what I mean? To see somebody who loves God's word. You know what? You could just say, gee, that guy's boiling with the word of God. He was fervent in spirit. He spoke and taught things accurately. Accurately. This was a man who was eloquent, he was accurate, and he was boiling with passion. But he knew only the baptism of John. Now, I don't want to get into all the debates around this, all right? Let me just say this. He was accurate, but not accurate enough. Okay? If you want to discuss this with me afterwards, we can. I read through books and books and books on material of this. What did he know? We don't know all that he knew, but supposedly he was missing out on some stuff. And so what happens? 26, he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. He goes to the synagogue and he speaks boldly, with passion, with power, eloquently. But then Priscilla and Aquila hear this. They take him aside and they explain to him the way of God more accurately. So they give him a lesson in a little bit of accuracy. The Greek word, with exactness. Verse 27, and when he wished to cross to Achaia, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples to welcome him. When he arrived, he greatly helped those who through grace had believed, for he powerfully refuted the Jews in public, showing the scriptures that the Christ was Jesus. Just up to there. Lovey, why don't you grab this? Somebody's desperately from the church trying to get hold of us. All right, so when he crossed to Achaia, the brothers encouraged him, and he wrote to the disciples, and he explained to them. It says this, that he powerfully refuted the Jews. So he goes and he speaks to them about the Lord. He tells them about Jesus, and there's this whole thing that takes place. And Apollos actually takes the ministry of Paul over now, and he shares with these people about Jesus. And Apollos goes ahead, and they actually write a letter to go ahead and say, hey, Apollos is coming to speak, and he's absolutely amazing. He knows God. He knows God's word. Let him speak. Just up to there this morning. That's the things. I asked you a question right at the beginning, and I'm going to try and apply to it all today. What do you think the greatest challenge is in the church today? You all discussed it. Let me tell you what I think the biggest problem in the church today. I think the biggest problem in the church today is what I call discipleship. What is discipleship? Well, maybe you grew up in a different way to when I grew up or whatever. But I wasn't a Christian. I grew up in a Catholic home. We could only go to Catholic church. Our Catholic church was absolutely stagnant and boring. It was all about bowing and throwing water and lighting candles. There was no passion. There was no Jesus. There was nothing. And now I'm not judging anybody. I believe that there are Catholic churches today who preach Jesus Christ crucified, raised from the dead. I'm just telling you what I experienced, all right? My mother got me into the choir, made me sing and do all the kind of stuff that choir boys did my Holy Communion and all that kind of stuff. And then I came to know the Lord while I was at school. I was 16 years old. A girl at school invited me to a prayer meeting. I went to this prayer meeting, and they prayed as though they were talking to God, and he was there. And I was like, wow, he's not up there on the cross. He's here with us. And I learned about God, and they invited me to this church called the Baptist Church. And they invited me to the youth group, and I went to the youth group. My parents wouldn't allow me to go to church. They only allowed me to go to the youth group. So I went to the youth group, and I loved the youth group. We would sing songs, and we'd talk about Jesus, and I found this love that you guys were talking about. They loved me, even though I was the naughtiest boy in the school. I met a youth pastor there. Drew, don't tell the young people I told you this, all right? But I met this youth pastor, and we were all having fun, and I took ice and threw it down his back of his pants. And we are still friends today. He didn't hate me. He didn't kick me out the church. I did something even worse. I went and swapped the pictures around on the toilets. Men's and women. They didn't kick me out. They loved me. They shared with me. Youth pastor would pick me up every Friday. I started attending church. They picked me up. I got baptized. Do I remember the sermons? No. What do I remember? I remember people that came and discipled me. I remember an elder named Frank and Joy who took me under their wing. They invited me round to their house. They gave me meals. I remember the DeKivet family. They invited me round every Thursday for dinner. Every Thursday night they invited me for dinner. And did they shove Jesus down my throat? No. Did they give me a Bible study? No. They just asked me how I was doing, spoke to me. I asked them questions. They talked to me about Jesus. It was always about Jesus because everything about their lives was Jesus. It was discipleship. All these people, nobody intentionally said, I'm going to disciple that wayward teenager. The love of Jesus just came out of them, and they discipled me. For all of us, we are all either disciples or discipling or disciples, all of us. We're learning. Some of us are teaching. Some of us are growing. But if we're not, then we're in trouble. If we're not, then we're in trouble. Because we'll never ever get to the point where we stop learning about God. And if as a church we're going to grow, we need to be those who impart the script, what we have learned, onto others. We've got to do it. Anywhere and everywhere. Let me just say a few things about discipling. Before Christians were called Christians, they were called disciples. And so disciple was a term, like a rabbi was a disciple. And so if you wanted to be discipled, you would go with a rabbi and you would live with him. You would walk with him. You would cook for him. You would clean for him. You'd go to the synagogue with him. You would learn everything. You would learn a way of life, a way of doing everything. That's the way you would learn. It would be like an apprenticeship. I think in many ways we've got it wrong today, because what we do is we lead somebody to Christ and then we're gone. We're gone. The way I see it, it's like having a baby and then saying, now feed yourself. Just feed yourself. Discipleship is about helping people to get to the next level, walking a journey with them, helping them. And you don't have to go through any course in the church. You've got the Bible. Just share with them. You've got the Holy Spirit in your heart. Just share with them. Come along somebody and just love them. You don't have to do it to 100 people. Just do 1 or 2. But that's what discipleship's all about. That's how the church grows. It's not the pastor. It's not the worship band. It's not the ministries. It's about you and I doing what God called us to do, to disciple others in a relationship with the living Lord God. That's what it's all about. It's not about the hundreds. It's about the one. Sometimes it's about just starting with those that are in your family already, your kids or your grandkids. Discipleship is not about imparting knowledge. It's not about taking somebody through a course, 10 weeks on how to get to know God. It's not about that. Oh, knowledge is good, but it's not about that. It's about a relationship where you can talk about Jesus and learn to grow. That's what I love about Bible study groups and things like that, where you can share with one another and talk and grow and learn from one another. There's a lot today in our world about online stuff, and yet there's something beautiful about just being part of a small group somewhere and sharing with each other. A famous missionary said this: no man has the right to hear the gospel twice until every man has heard it once. I agree with that, except I would say that Paul says no. Paul would say, I went back there over and over and again to encourage those that I'd led to Christ. A couple more things that this passage blew my head away with was, I don't know if you noticed, but when it came to the part of Priscilla and Aquila, did you notice they said the lady's name first and the guy's name second? It's the first time it does that. And I think it's quite significant. What is Luke trying to say? Well, I'm not sure, and I've got to tread carefully here this morning. Let me tell you what happens. Priscilla and Aquila take this man home quietly, and they share with him, and they correct him. They do it quietly. They don't do it in front of everybody. They do it quietly. Hey, don't you want to come over for a coffee, a little chat? Just want to share some things that I think we should chat about. And we're not sure if it was Aquila who came to know Christ, Priscilla who came to know Christ before Aquila or whatever, but it seems that she had more information than him. And so she was the one who helped Apollo. Now, if you know anything about our church, we believe in what we call male headship. Okay? But if you know anything else about our church, we believe in the fact that women, God has gifted them to be able to teach anybody and everybody. We think that God has given us a structure, that the male is the head, but it doesn't take anything away from what God has given women. And we need to acknowledge women and their gifts and their talents. I was at a church where they fired the Sunday school teacher. The new pastor came in, he fired the Sunday school teacher because the Sunday school teacher cannot teach men. It broke my heart. She was a Sunday school teacher. She was wonderful. She was incredibly gifted at the Bible. It was terrible. It broke the church. The church eventually died because of this one incident. It just wrecked everything. Here we see the beauty of Aquila just quietly taking a side, not publicly, just quietly, and helping him understand something. He wasn't wayward, he wasn't teaching untruth. To be honest, she was just trying to help him be a little bit more accurate. The other thing that blew me away, and I'm nearly finished, was a man called Apollos, who was eloquent. He was great. He was teaching everybody. And here he is, humbling himself to sit down and having a woman telling him that he's not so accurate. You've got to pause for a moment and say, that was quite unique in the culture. But you know what it tells me? It tells me this, that if we want to be disciples of Jesus Christ, we got to be able to learn from anybody and everybody. Let's be fat people, faithful, available, and teachable. A true disciple of Jesus Christ is open to instruction from anybody, even a 5-year-old child. I love that about Apollos. My last thing that really struck me was that I think in the Western world, over the past centuries, the church building seems to be the center of the congregation's ministry. And I think that's important, but as you would have seen with COVID, I think that we have to remember that ministry is not just about what happens here on a Sunday, but it's what happens in homes. Probably the greatest thing that happened was Apollos sitting in the home of Aquila and Priscilla discussing how a more accurate way would be to talk about Jesus Christ. And so maybe the greatest amount of ministry takes place in your house as you share with others. You never know what could happen in a house. As I look back over my life, all those meals that I sat with people who were elders of the church and whatever, made the biggest impact on my life. And today, my youth pastor is still my best friend. And we talk all the time. He's in a different country. That's many, many years ago. And that our relationship has lasted. Do we have anything in common? No, we don't. He doesn't like soccer. He likes rugby. He doesn't like golf. He likes running. I think running is scary. I'd rather catch a bus. But what do we have in common? The Lord Jesus Christ. And so my question as I close is this. Ask yourself the question. Are you discipling somebody? Is somebody discipling you? Are you a disciple of Jesus Christ? Those are the questions we need to be asking. And we probably need to be doing all three, because I don't think we'll ever stop learning while we're on this earth. If not, may I encourage you to find somebody who can come alongside you and help you find the more accurate way. Somebody who can help you grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And if I can be part of that process, I would love to. Please come and speak to me afterwards. I'm going to pray for you all while the worship team remains seated, and then we'll sing another song. Father God, we thank you for your words. We thank you for the testimony. We thank you for the songs. We thank you for everything this morning. We give you all the praise and glory. And we do pray, Lord Jesus, that you'd help us to be those who disciple, those who are prepared to be discipled as we grow and become more like you. In Jesus' precious name. Amen. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Pastor Ray. Come on, church, let's stand and sing our last song, How Great is Our God. The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. And age to age he stands, and time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, oh Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? And sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. He's the name above all names. He's the name above all names. You are worthy of all praise. Oh, my heart will sing, how great is our God. He's the name above all names. You are worthy of all praise. Oh, my heart will sing, how great is our God. Sing it one more time. How great is our God? How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God, and all